Here's a thought to start our day. Ultimately, nothing matters. Apparently, Teddy Roosevelt said that on his deathbed. And maybe he was right. Maybe nothing matters, ultimately. But in the moment, things matter a lot. And we are all in a moment right now that is not an easy time, right around the world and in our careers. That's why we're here today. I am a pre-sales person. My name is Aileen McNabb, and I talk to a lot of other pre-sales people. And what I've been hearing is a lot of understandable stress. I'm hearing concerns like, will the virus make me lose my job? My partner has lost his job. I cannot afford to lose mine too. How can I increase and show my value so that I keep the job I have? Those concerns made me think, how can I help if at all? And one way I can help is to relieve SE stress by addressing the issue of value, helping as much as possible so that you can increase your value, show it to others, and realize yourself the value you already have. Part of that is happening today. I have gotten help from pre-sales leaders other than myself, and I have brought together some of their comments, and I have brought with me today Scott Sawyer. Scott has been a leader of pre-sales and sales enablement for his whole career practically, and he is going to talk to us about one specific area that he cares about a lot. The insights from other leaders, rather than doing them here on this video, I will be including them in a document that I will send to everybody. So now, let's have a chat with Scott. Unfortunately, we had a small Zoom, perhaps user challenge. The recording started late. But I think it's important that we look at how Scott started, because he told us about the amazing effects of having strong emotional intelligence. So this is the slide that he showed us early on, and I'm floored by them. 90% of top performers have high IQ. EQ is responsible for 58% of your job performance, and people with high EQ make $20,000 more than people without it. Now those statistics are absolutely amazing. That's how he started. Now let's just join him where we picked him up in the recording.
And I brought up some pictures of people here. And when you think of a leader, what do you admire in that leader? And that's a question. So it could be a teacher, it could be your parents, it could be famous people on this slide. Anybody want to weigh in on that, of what they look for or who they think is a great leader?
But I'll say that I am really keen on Ruth Bader Ginsburg, because she had a really rough life and she continues to be amazing. So I just think she is a great leader. She's on the Supreme Court, for anybody who doesn't know her, in the U.S.
And I know I just read the headlines that she was in the hospital and now she's out, which is great news. But yeah, certainly a great leader. A lot of the leaders that were on
Scott, yeah. Sorry, before you go on, I have a few comments here. I'll read them. So some people are saying that they admire someone who is bold and courageous, someone who shows empathy. We heard that even in the skills for pre-sales. Integrity, following convictions with courage. And I think that's way harder than we might think. Servant leadership like Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King. So those are the comments we've had.
Okay, great. And that's right in line with what we're talking about under that. A lot of it is under that umbrella of emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. So does anybody know who that person in the red down at the bottom is?
I do.
Go ahead, Aileen. Who is that?
That is Angela Merkel.
It is Angela Merkel, and she is the Chancellor of Germany. And I want to kind of make this.
Oh, by the way, Scott, loads of people got it right. I am not the only smart one in the group.
Yeah, well, I said there were a lot of smart people on this call. So you think of her, and this is timely, considering the situation where we're in on a global basis. And she gave a speech, I think it was sometime in March, and she, Chancellor of Germany, she gave a speech to the German people. And somebody went through and reviewed that speech, somebody from New York Magazine. And this is what they had to say about the speech. what gave the speech such force is tone, is being direct, being honest, and being searingly empathetic. And that's what really, I think, for me, counts as a great leader, is showing great empathy, showing honesty, being direct. And a big part of what we do as SCs is also our tone and how we approach and how we answer questions and how we relate to people. That's part of it. And I've always thought that this is that, well, I've got a presentation today. If you're an SC, it isn't a presentation. It's a performance. And that is a big part of what we do day in and day out. Okay, so thank you for your input on that. So what is EI? EI is recognizing and understanding your emotions and the person you're talking with, and then managing your behavior and your relationships. That is that's the nutshell of it. That's the base of what EI is all about. But let's talk about some more benefits of strong EI. And Aileen, I think we have SCs and also pre-sales managers on the call. Is that correct?
Yes, we do have some.
Okay, so we're going to break this down a little bit in the swim lanes. First of all, for all of us, if we have strong emotional intelligence, we're going to have improved decision making. We're going to have decreased occupational stress, and we're also going to have increased personal well-being. And on the manager side, we're going to have a reduced staff turnover. We're going to increase our leadership ability, and we're also going to increase team performance. So, but what is very important to understand, and sometimes people get this a little mixed up, and I want to be clear about this, is that EI is not the opposite of intelligence. It's not the triumph of heart over head, but it's a unique intersection of both. So I want to make sure that everybody has a clear understanding of that. But what EI is not, it's not just the ability to be nice. We all like to be nice, but it's more than that. It's not like just letting it all hang out. But there's two important points about EI. That's, first of all, it's not gender specific, number one. And number two, it's a skill. And that's what I love about EI, is that we can become better and better at it, because it's a skill in terms of awareness and skill that we can develop. So very exciting. So, and speaking of skills, let's talk about that. So one of the most important skills that we want to start off with is should we all get our yoga mats out and just kind of go into the Zen mode right here, because we need to pause. All right. When we hear things, sometimes our first reaction is to be emotional. And what EI does, if we have the proper skills, we step away from that. We want to make sure that we have a pause, because time is really, really important here. And we need time. And as we go through the presentation a little bit, I'll explain why we need the time. Now, yes, go ahead, Amy.
I wanted to make a comment on this part here, because it is really important that we pause, that we think for a minute. Sometimes we don't have a lot of time. So if you don't mind, I'm going to tell a quick story. Sure. I had started a new pre-sales management role at a company, and I was getting to know people on the phone. I was talking to one of the AEs. And while I was talking to him, my thought was, what an arrogant bleep. Now, here is something that's absolutely, if I'm thinking that, that's coming across. He can't see me rolling my eyes, but he can hear a tone in my voice.
Right on.
Probably affect how I talk to him. So I knew I had to stop that, but I didn't have time to go away and think about it. I use the ABC method, and I'm going to send that on later, for dealing with stress and resilience. So one thing I like is I use alternates, and you might think of it as reframing or just changing what's going on in your life. So I have learned to deliberately change my thoughts. So I thought, you arrogant bleep. And what I made myself think instead is, maybe he's as good as he says he is. And isn't that great? Because in order for me to be successful, I need great AEs. It made a huge difference. Turned out he was an arrogant bleep. He was a bleep in general. But this gave me time to get through that phone call, and then I could do the pause that you're talking about. I had more time. So just a thought, if anybody else has any thoughts on any of these things, by all means join in and, or send chats.
Aileen, your timing was perfect because we just came up to 11 minutes. And one of the things I wanted to do is make sure we stop every 10 minutes. And if there are questions, we address them. So like usual, timing was spot on. So, so the first thing we want to do, and thank you for that, is we want to pause.
So guys, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions directly if you want.
Okay. Oops, let me see here. I think you know what? Let me get through this point. We'll get back to that if that's.
Yep.
Am I actually on mute?
You're not. No, you're good.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. So next is, so we do want to pause. Now, we want to pause because we want to give ourselves time and we don't want to emotionally react to something. But this, it's a skill, right? And like any skill in life, in golf and whatever, or sports or whatever it is, we need to practice it. But the other thing we need to do is we need to clarify and confirm. And there's two benefits of this. First of all, when we clarify and confirm, you know, we're trying to get a better understanding of what the customer is saying to us, right? Is that it gives us time. So along with the pause and clarifying and confirm, it's going to give us time. And with clarifying and confirming, we're going to have a better understanding. So imagine that, having the time, reacting emotionally correct, and having a better understanding is a great equation for success. And that's what these two skills do. But it takes practice. So, but let's say we don't have those skills. And this is, I think, happens to a lot of people a lot of times, is they turn into this guy.
I love that guy.
That guy says it all. So, and I think maybe for most of us, we have some point in our lives have been this guy. And what EI tries to do is reduce the amount of time that we're in this actual state. Now, another example of being a rage ball is road rage. And I've done some research on this, and people get so bent out of shape on this because they take it personally. And it's funny, I was not really funny, but kind of interesting. When I was down in Sydney, Australia, I was doing this EI presentation, and the guy in the back, and I was talking about road rage. And I said, so has anybody ever had road rage before? And the guy in the back put up his hand, and he goes, well, it was almost like a confession session. He goes, well, I'm the guy that at one point, when I had road rage, I got out of my car. And I confronted this other motorist, and everybody just kind of go, whoa. And he goes, yeah. And the question that I asked, so for you to do it over again, would you have done that? And he goes, no. So there's time and time again, we might have examples in our personal or business life, or we hear on the news, is that like people are losing their lunch. And it's a lot of it is because they don't have proper emotional intelligence. So as we move, yes, go ahead, Adrian.
I started this by saying that things do matter a lot because we're in really tough times now.
Yes.
And so, you know, the pandemic is causing us to do some crazy things. So what you were just saying was road rage. I don't know if you've read in the news, guys, but in the U.S., somebody shot a man because he was a clerk in a dollar store because he asked the man's wife to wear a mask. And just recently, 2 people at McDonald's were shot because they asked people to leave the area because they were keeping the numbers low. And that's similar to road rage. And that is similar to all kinds of things. It is all kinds of things, but it's caused by the pandemic. It's even worse, don't you think? So you're dealing with AEs, and all of a sudden you're in a temper tantrum at one of them. Well, that doesn't help you at work. And, you know, you're doing a demo and somebody asks what is truly a stupid question that you normally would gloss over, but now you look at them like they're from the moon, and they can see that online or in person. So this is everything Scott says here is very true, but I think this is really true right now in our jobs as well as everywhere else.
You know, well said. And I don't think of any other time. 9/11 was tough, but I don't think in any other time do we need strong emotional intelligence than we do today. Just in terms of how it's everything that we do, not only in the business sense, but in our personal life. We need this more than ever. And we need our leaders to have strong emotional intelligence, because this isn't going to be over, unfortunately. This is not going to be over in May. And this is going to be with us for a while. So we really need to dig deep.
So Scott, I'm going to unmute people now, just for a minute, and then give me a moment to mute you, to get you back. But I'm going to unmute. Sure. And ask if you want to make any comments or ask any questions about, for instance, are you finding yourself more easily annoyed at work? Do you think it's just work, or do you think it's because of the pandemic? And I'll give it a couple of seconds, and if you don't want to talk, that's fine. But if you do, go ahead.
I was going to speak to Scott, what you were saying from a demo perspective. There was a time when I would be asked a question from a prospect during the demo, and I would get angry internally that they were asking me the question, because I kept taking it as a sign of I'm not doing, the demo's not good. And so as that was popping up, I started to become a lot more self-aware and ask myself, why is this even upsetting me for someone to ask a question? Why did it make me so angry internally? And I realized that really it was me. It was, one, I wasn't anticipating that questions were going to be asked. Two, I wasn't anticipating which questions could possibly be asked. Three, it was me kind of getting defensive and feeling like it was, more of my ego in that, oh, you're not doing a good job. And the reality that I had to tell myself was, no, they just want more clarification. It's just a question. And then I reframed it to look at the question as an opportunity for discussion and started to look at it in a positive light instead of a negative one, if that makes any sense. So anyway, that was my thought, and that was my comment.
I think that's a good thought. And Scott, I think you're actually going to talk about some of that, the self-awareness.
Well, I am. And
okay,
so
hold on. I'm going to mute everybody, and then I'm going to bring you back.
Okay, perfect.
And there you go, Scott.
Okay, great. Well said, and great points made. And the key that I was listening to in what you were saying was self-aware. Mm-hmm. That is such a big part of emotional intelligence, of knowing yourself and being self-aware. And then once you have that self-awareness, you'll have a better understanding. And I'm sure now the way, if you get those questions now, you're answering them a lot differently than you did before. And it's the whole idea of putting your ego aside and just really, you're there for the customer to understand. So thank you for that. That was perfect. But the whole pivot moment for you, for sure, is just being more self-aware and then asking yourself that question. So why is this bothering me? So we're going to get to that. So thank you very much. As we continue our journey here, I want to also talk about a technique that I use. I call a view from the top. And what that is that if you do get into an emotional situation, try to elevate yourself to be on the ceiling and looking down at yourself and almost saying, do I want to be that person that is emotionally reacting positive, like not in a positive way? And it's always just a different viewpoint that you can give yourself, and it might give yourself time to calm down and be emotionally in tune to what's going on in the situation. So I call it the 10,000 foot view, or a view from the top. So just another awareness or skill that we could use. So for me, this one is really important, and it's to deal with time and the whole idea of power of reflection. So we could all raise our hands, but has anybody ever sent out a text or an email or been on the phone or said something that they wanted to kind of take back? Anybody?
Put yeses or nos in the chat, guys.
I'm sure. I don't know if anybody has been through life not saying, "Oh man, I wish I could have that back." And so
I'm getting things like super big yes. Yep.
Super big yes. I like that. Okay, so super big yes. So we get this email, we get this text, and we go, your first thing is an emotional reaction. So we're not giving ourselves time. Well, I'm gonna pen something back here, and I'm gonna tell them there, and I'm gonna hit send. Well, I showed them, and you give yourself a little bit of a hero cookie, and you send off a kind of a nasty text or an email back to that person, and then you go on with the day, and then so that night you're sleeping, and all of a sudden I call it the 3 a.m. wake up, and you're like this, and what happens is that your subconscious kicks in, and then you're just flooded with anxiety. And you start kicking yourself going, why did I respond that way? Why did I send that text? Why did I say that something over the phone? I shouldn't have. So this is, again, a power of making sure that you have time and the power of reflection. And I've got, and sometimes we're in a demo and we should we act this way? Shouldn't we act this way? And sometimes it's got to be a little quick to a response, but we get better at that. And I'm going to show you another skill in a little bit to help us with that. But in other times, if we get an email, and I'll get an email and I'll go, you know what I'm going to do? I've got 2 dogs, by the way. I'll take my dogs out at lunch or maybe just up the block in the morning. And then when I come back after taking that walk, my email is going to be 180% different from the one if I just sat and answered that right away. So that's the power of giving yourself time and the power of reflection.
So okay. Scott, some of your tips and the person who spoke earlier, things happen during the demo, like I mentioned on the phone, but it's not always. It is emails and things to your customer and to the AEs and the pre-sales managers and the people that you're dealing with. So, it happens to us in all kinds of places in our lives.
It really does. And that's a great point. And what is so cool about EI is that you can use it all the time. So, I know we're in a business sense right now, but these are life skills. It's like swimming. You've got to get them. You've got to know they're going to save you. And if you can use EI in your personal life, because for me, it's a harder thing to do. You're kind of closer to the bone on your personal side, so your emotions might be a little closer to the surface. But if you can do it in your personal life, you can definitely do it in your business life. And that leads us to our next image here. And this is what I call the long run. And it's kind of keeping your eyes on the prize. And what you think about how you want to be perceived by other people. What other people say about you. And I always kid with my wife, Lee, and I say to her, I say on my tombstone, when I go to my great reward, I want on that tombstone to say Scott Sawyer had great emotional intelligence, because it means a lot. And it's how your relationship is with people, not only at business, but also, of course, in your personal life. Okay, so here's another question for you. Drum roll, please. What shot or this visual right now, what movie is that from?
Come on, guys, put it in the chat. I didn't recognize it, but you might.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Chat's there.
People are getting it. Keep trying. Yep, they got it right.
Got it. Okay. So Forrest Gump. Now, I'm just going out on a bit of a limb here, but the majority of people probably have seen Forrest Gump. Now, what I want you to do is start thinking about that movie. And who are the people do you think in that movie had strong emotional intelligence?
Come on, get your typing fingers going.
Yep.
I think Forrest did, yes.
Okay, so the question that I have, and so why would you say that? Why would you say Forrest had strong EI? And a big part of emotional intelligence is not putting yourself first.
Oh, somebody said the mom. Go ahead.
Oh, the mom was great. The mom had to do some things to get Forrest to stay in school. Do you remember that part? So it's doing for other people, if you will, paying it forward. That's a good sense of emotional intelligence, is if you're not putting yourself first. And you remember when Forrest ran back into the jungle to take all his buddies out of the forest during that war scene? That's just another strong example of emotional intelligence. So what I'm going to do, if our technology works here, I'm going to show you a small clip from the movie, and then we can debrief after that. So bear with me for a second.
If it doesn't work, we'll let you know.
Okay.
Listen, Forrest, I don't know how to say this. I want to apologize for anything that I ever did to you, because I was messed up for a long time. And yoo-hoo! Hey! Hi! Hey, you! This is my old friend from Alabama. How'd you do? Listen, next week my schedule changes, so I'll be able to. Thanks. No problem. Gotta go, Jen. I'm double packed. Okay. Bye. Thanks. This is my very good friend, Mr. Gump. Can you say hi to him? Hello, Mr. Gump.
Hello.
Oh, can I go watch TV now? Yes, just keep it low.
You're a mama, Jen.
I'm a mama. His name's Forrest.
Like me.
I named him after his daddy.
You got a daddy named Forrest, too?
You're his daddy, Forrest. Hey. Forrest, look at me. Look at me, Forrest. There's nothing you need to do, okay? You didn't do anything wrong. Okay? Isn't he beautiful?
It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But is he smart?
He's very smart. He's one of the smartest in his class. Yeah, it's okay. Go talk to him.
What are you watching?
Okay.
So, Scott, before you talk about it, I just want to mention some chats that came. Uh-oh. Are you okay there?
Sure.
Some chats came through about how touching this is. We were glad we didn't have the cameras on because we all cry when we see us.
Yeah. It's very emotional scene, and Tom Hanks won an Academy Award for this, and rightly so. But you'll notice there's just some key parts in that scene alone, let alone the whole movie, is that when Jenny said about that Forrest Jr. was his son, what was Tom's first reaction, or Forrest's first reaction? How did he portray it? He stepped back. He paused. He gave himself time to think. A classic example of emotional intelligence. He was rocked by it. You could tell by his movement. You could also tell by his eyes. And then the next key point too, again, unbelievable EI, is he was concerned for his son. because he asked about how his IQ level was. So just in that small little clip, we could see the power of emotional intelligence. Any other comments or questions about that scene or the movie itself?
I have to link it back to what Deanna, that's who was online earlier, what she was talking about. Because what is amazing there is he cared very much about the child. But Forrest was very self-aware. He was aware of the problems that he had. He's gone through life and he's done great things, but he was aware of the issues that he had. That's why he went like this. And that's what Deanna was saying. Be aware of yourself, and it makes a big difference. And in his case, it also was him showing some empathy for his son. He's my son. Is he okay?
Right.
That's a big question to ask. And this may not seem like it's related to the SE world, but as Deanna was saying, when we're in front of customers and we feel like that and we do that pause, but it was also the self-awareness, whether we're dealing with the AEs we work with, whether we're dealing with the customers who are, we think, treating us as if we're stupid, we need to be like Forrest.
Well, we do. And okay, so let's just take that a bit further, and then we're going to go on to the rest of the presentation. Why was Forrest Gump, Aileen, you mentioned this, but why was he so successful? His IQ probably wasn't as best as everybody else in his circle, in his life. The number one reason, and I can argue this all day long, the reason he was successful in life, because he had strong emotional intelligence. Okay. So let's continue on and piece this together a little bit more. And here's another really, really cool skill I want you to tune in on. And
I'm going to give you a 10-minute heads up.
Okay, great. Thank you. I've got the stopwatch going as we speak. So we use a circle here, and I want you to write these. I want you to write this down. KCG. First of all, know yourself, choose yourself, and give yourself. The power of KCG. So you think about it, knowing. So Deanna talked about this. She said, being self-aware, right? What are you feeling when something happens? So know yourself under stress. That's the first thing we have to do. And it's just like a circle. Then, and to me, this is the hardest part, choose yourself. What's your intention? What options do you have right now? What action or what are you going to say, and how are you going to say it? And then the third is more of that long-term view I was talking about. Give yourself. So this all has to do with your values, showing empathy. This would be, for example, a company's mission statement or vision. So, and it just goes in a circle. And this is to me is a great foundation of a skill set to practice EI all day long. Know yourself, choose yourself, give yourself. KCG. So very, very strong skill set, and we can do it. Just know yourself and know how you're going to react, and then choose the avenue you want to go, and then give yourself and keep that long-term vision forefront. Okay, so why do employers value EI over IQ? Remains calm under pressure. Conflict, resolves conflict effectively. Shows empathy to their colleagues. Leads by example. And when they're considering business decisions, they consider it through an EI lens. Now, but what's in it for you? Well, why EI is important to you at the performance level, and I don't know if you remember this or not, is the three numbers that I started off at the beginning, but that middle number of 58% of your work is based on emotional intelligence. So that's number one. Number two, how about your physical health? Having low EI can lead to a greater chance of a heart attack and a suppressed immune system. How about on the mental side, where if we have low E, it can lead to anxiety, depression, and mood swings? And how about your relationships at work, your relationship with your managers, your relationships with the SCs? Coming from the SC world, we all work in an SC team. We have to get along with other people. But if we don't have strong emotional intelligence, it could hurt in a lack of communication and reduce the ability to express express our emotions correctly. So here's the science part of it. All right. When we have some type of emotional interaction with somebody, it enters here in the brain, in the back of the brain. Unfortunately, the journey it takes is an interesting one, because before it gets to the rational side of the brain, it actually, you feel the emotion before it gets to the irrational side. So partway through the journey, we feel it. And without using our skill sets of EI and knowledge, like pausing or using KCG, we're going to act when it's halfway through the journey. And then we're going to say something or act something on emotion and not the irrational part of the brain. I remember going back, I talked to, there's two sides of the brain, the emotional and the rational side. A lot of times we are acting, if we don't have strong emotional intelligence, in the middle part. They feel it here and then react. So we need time and understanding and the ability to think rationally. So here are some questions for you. And I want you to be honest with yourself. And this goes through the whole idea of being, self-realization. Okay. Can you recognize your emotions?
Let's get some yeses or nos here, guys.
So
You
usually
can recognize your emotions. Think about it when I'm dealing with AEs, when I'm in front of my customer, when I am afraid to do this discovery. They all think they're pretty good at recognizing their emotions.
Yeah, and that's
one person said, I know when I'm crabby. I bet everybody else does.
Or you know when you're angry, you know when you're sad. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but it's really important to have a large vocabulary of how you're feeling in terms of emotional intelligence. Figure out what is triggering your emotions. All right. So why is it bothering you? Maybe it's the person that Aileen was talking about that, I'm not going to say it, but not a very good AE. We've got to find out what's behind our emotions. Number 3, now this to me is kind of important, is managing our emotional information. What are you going to do with it? And number 4, recognizing the emotion of others. Mm. And for me, it might be different, but for me, the toughest one is managing the emotional information, making sure that we're following that journey through the brain to the rational part of it and not reacting too early. So it's managing the emotional information and making sure, wait for it, that you're giving the right response. Not only in terms of your verbiage, obviously, but also in terms of your body language, your tone, your eye contact, etc. So great questions to ask yourself and where you are on the scale of figuring out if you have strong emotional intelligence or not. Okay, as we move on. So this is going to be quick, but understanding the 4 awareness points to successful EI are, first of all, strategies in terms of self-awareness. And one of the things that I do is I keep a journal about my emotions. Okay, so it's good not just to say it, but actually to write it out. There's a big difference. Get to know yourself under stress, which is important. Again, self-realization. And what I suggest, so if you live with someone, your partner, your husband, and your wife, if you're new to the EI game, take them along the journey with you in developing your emotional intelligence, because what you can do is give yourself feedback. And many times, my wife and I EI each other. I'm saying, well, if you could do it again, would you handle that situation a little differently? And it's great to have that ongoing feedback, because that's going to help in our development. Okay, self-management. Everybody, I need you to breathe. So it goes back to the power of yoga, but we definitely need to breathe. We need to use the power of time and reflection. You know what? One of the things we really have to do a lot more of, considering how these days are going, is we need to smile and laugh more. We really do. And so be conscious of that. Try to look for where you can have some fun under these trying days. And again, I always love that 10,000 foot view. taking a look at yourself to make sure you're acting in the way that you should be acting. Social awareness. You notice that they're not shaking hands here. They're doing this. I don't know if we'll ever shake hands again, but I wonder if that's allowed. Anyway, so recognize and understand the emotion of others. This is really key. Greet people by name. It's a little thing, but it goes a long way.
I know that this is the part where you go through quickly. I'm getting down to it, but I really want to pull this back into our SE world, like to understand other people. It is so easy to be annoyed by the AE who didn't get a discovery for us, by the customer who drove us crazy, by the other pre-sales people who, on the demo with me and they won't rehearse. That business of turning it around and trying to consider the other person's side of it, even if you only do it momentarily, it'll keep you from rolling your eyes.
Right. Yeah. And that's, again, empathy, putting yourself in the other people's shoes. So thank you for that. And a big part of it, and I think when you are demoing, when you are up on stage, is watching people's body language. Like, if you have grumpy Greta or grumpy Gus in the back, and you can see I'm folding my arms here, and I think we've all run into those people while we're presenting, is that you've got to be aware of people's body language. It's really important. And one of the other things that is really, really important is eye contact. I call it eye love, but you've got to make proper eye contact with people, because that also goes a long way in making that, as Bruce Springsteen would say, who's basically up there. And the reason I have Bruce Springsteen up there just quickly is because he's a great storyteller. But anyway, but it's all about that human connection, that human touch. And if we can't shake people's hands anymore, what's going to be really, really important is eye contact, or like I said, which I call is eye love. Okay, last but not least here is relationship management, managing your interactions successfully. Be open and be curious. And, I've hired a lot of people in my days, and one of the things that I look for, and I've hired many people on this one thing, during the interview process, them asking great questions. Because if they're asking great questions of me, I know that they've been listening and using active listening skills. And that's a big part of what we should be doing. And a big skill set is making sure that we have our listening skills at 100% all the time. Acknowledge other people's feelings. And when you care, show it. And again, empathy is huge in emotional intelligence. When you look, you'll see up in the right-hand corner there, you got to see their world. You got to understand their feelings. But you know what? Stop judging. We're doing that way too much. What gives us the right to judge people? We don't know where they've been. We don't know what they've been through. And I think one of the downfalls of social media is that we judge way too much. Okay, so the behaviors of emotional intelligence. Here we go. So I want you to write down 2 or 3 things, and this is for yourself, that's all, on a piece of paper of what you think you can be doing. This is the flashcard session of the presentation. Here we go. So do you have a robust emotional vocabulary? When you come home from a bad day, do you have got it? Do you have, oh my gosh, I just had a bad day? Well, let's get behind that. Not just a bad day, but try to build out your emotional vocabulary. Are you curious about people? Do you embrace change? Do you know your strengths and weaknesses? I love PowerPoint. I'm not good in Excel, as an example. I know some of my strengths and weaknesses. Are you a good judge of character? Are you difficult to offend? You know how to say no to others and yourself. You let go of your mistakes. Please, please, please do not spend your life looking in the rearview mirror. Learn from it and move on. You give and expect nothing in return. Pay it forward. Please don't hold grudges. It's wasted energy. It's negative. Let go. And here's some other ones. Neutralize toxic people. Don't seek perfection. You'll drive yourself crazy. Appreciate what we have. Even in these trying days, we have a lot. You've got to disconnect. Put down your phone. All right? Go for that human connection. You stop negative self-talk in its tracks. You won't let anybody limit your joy. And I'm just going to quickly read this last quote here. Aristotle's challenge: anyone can become angry. That's easy. But to be angry with the right person at the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, that is not easy. So we can get there by practicing. And here's some reference material I want to leave you with is EI 2.0. This is, if you will, the Bible of emotional intelligence, is done by Daniel Goleman. I love this book too, The Real World Guide to Emotional Intelligence. And I'm going to leave you with a quote. And I live this quote day in and day out. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be successful? And Aileen, I am finished.
Thank you. So I will close. We try to keep to the hour that we promised. While I close in 30 seconds or less, in the chat, I wonder if people, before you leave, could just tell us one more thing. And that would, well, two things, really. Were you surprised by the leaders who really focused on, in those comments that I gave, really focused on things related to soft skills and specifically emotional intelligence? Sometimes it was mentioned in, the rapport and the getting along. Was that surprising to you? And were you surprised at Scott's statistics that he opened with? If 58% of our work performance is based on emotional intelligence, and the pre-sales leaders kept mentioning it, how important is it? And that's why we wanted to bring this to you. And so I will end now by asking, did you think about Teddy Roosevelt? Did you think, is it true that ultimately nothing matters? I think maybe ultimately my take on it would be, yeah, sure, but not right now. And so that's why we did this. We hope that the things the leaders shared will help, and Scott's lessons will help us. I will send you a copy of those insights from pre-sales leaders in more detail. I'll send you the ABC method for resilience, because we all need to be resilient right now. And I'll send a summary of Scott's lesson today. We hope that they helped you. Those tips can help you in your careers. Emotional intelligence can help us cope and thrive in our careers and everywhere else. And so we'll say goodbye now for today. I'll be looking at your messages and say thank you very much for joining us, and please try to stay healthy.